just in case there is sound. Just in case there was sound for a little bit there, we had a minor technical difficulty. But let's start all over again. Who's doing business in Lake Elsinore? Who's coming to Lake Elsinore? We're going to do a rundown on all the businesses and activity that we encountered. We talked about a little bit last time. We're going to cover the budget. How is the city spending your money? And it's June. Summer's here. What can I do with my kids? We're going to talk about all the special events that are happening here over the summer, right here on Lake Elsinore Live. My name's Steve Manos. I'm mayor for the city of Lake Elsinore, and it is my privilege to be joining you today on this live stream. The live stream here is a little bit of a more informal format where I'll be providing a bit of an update for the first part, and then for the remainder, we'll be taking your questions. So if you've had anything that you'd like to know, and we already have some questions that have been asked that we'll be answering here today, but if you have anything that's burning on your mind that you'd like to go ahead and ask right now, we'll be taking those questions live right here on this live stream. So let's start with Economic Development 2.0. In our last podcast, we had a special guest, Gina Gonzalez, who is our Economic Development Director, and we got to talk a little bit about all the new and exciting things that we're predicting that are going to come to the city of Lake Elsinore. And we also talked about a very important conference called the International Conference of Shopping Centers. This is the biggest real estate event that exists for retailers and those that would come to the city, offering many of the representatives in one place for many of those franchises and businesses that people have been asking about most. We actually met with a number of representatives. It was a very successful, a very busy couple of days as we met with, it was like a marathon. Every half hour we were meeting with new people. And I got to say a little bit about this conference. We only started going there about 12 years ago. And when I first started going to ICSC, the conference, the response from people was a lot more muted. We were coming out of the Great Recession, and oftentimes as I introduced myself to people, they would say, Lake Elsinore, where the heck is that? And then I would get to say things like, oh, we're in Southern California. And they'd say things like, oh, we're not doing business in California. And so we'd exchange cards and say, hey, that might change in the future. But you build the relationship. And quite frankly, a lot of those businesses, rely on those relationships. Sometimes people move from one franchise representative office to another, and they take those relationships with them. And so over the past decade, we've been able to go ahead and continue to build relationships. So now when I go out and I meet with these folks, not only are they interested in what's going on in Lake Elsinore, it's like meeting an old friend. Hey, Steve, how are things? How's the family? And we're able to go ahead and have a conversation about some of the new things that are happening in the city, and we give them updates and whatnot. I got a small list of folks that we actually got together with. One of them was with Pacific Surf. Pacific Surf actually offers a wave machine that the city's looking into and maybe potentially partnering with a group who would put a wave machine somewhere around the city. So we're kind of taking a look at that right now. We also met with some folks that do indoor pickleball courts, Smart and Final, Adventure Golf and Sports, retail on-site, Luna Grill, Wolf Gang Bakery and Grooming. We got Burlington, Rich Development, Lewis Groups, Barron's Markets. We've got a new movie theater that could, luxury movie theater who may be interested in the area. Lamar, Active Games, Checkers Rally, Sports Facilities, Extended Stay America. We also actually received an application from a group that represents Wyndham Hotels. So we actually got a hotel application that came in for one of the lots here in Lake Elsinore. We also got a couple of updates from folks that are searching for spots. Hilton, Hyatt, IHG, Marriott, AMC Theaters, Inspire Brands, Wyndham, Regency Centers, and much, much more. We talked to a number of retailers who are looking at Lake Elsinore and seeing the opportunity that's here. Now, sometimes when we meet these people for the first time, we just kind of talk about the city and some of the highlights, what's happening within the city. We got a 250,000 primary trade area. That's a 15-minute drive time around the lake. And then, there's all sorts of updated demographics. Our median household income has increased dramatically. The number of households that are occupied in the city is near maximum. We certainly are increasing our density, and we're adding new households every single year. We're still one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. And this is all very exciting stuff for retailers who are going to rely on that density and rely on that income to go ahead and be successful in our city. Some of the folks that we talk to, we're talking to the first time. And so it's more or less letting them know where we're at and what our trade area is. And so when we go through that process, it's kind of an interesting process because we'll often invite those people out and actually tour them through the city. So we put them on a bus. We literally have a bus that has the city logo imprinted and blazoned on it, and those folks will be driving. And if you ever see that bus, there are likely very wealthy individuals on that bus taking a look around the lake. And one of the things that we usually have to go ahead and impress upon them is that normally in the center of a city, you have your industry, and then outside of that, you have your high density housing, and then outside of that, you usually have your low density housing. We're a little bit different because we have a lake in the middle of our city. So we have a lot of older housing kind of at center, people who built, around the lake in order to be in the lake. And then we have very separate kind of business corridors in different areas around the lake. And then some of our nicest areas, some of our master plan development, are on the very fringes. So we're very different. We're kind of reverse, kind of inside out in many respects. And so when you take these people off the freeway and get them away from the homes that maybe are on the Main Street area that are like $450,000 homes, nothing wrong with that, but that's some of the oldest areas of the city, and you take them out and we show them like Tuscany Hills, and we show them Canyon Hills, and we show them McVicker, and we show them Summerley, and we show them Albert Hill, and Rosetta Canyon, all these newer homes. Then they come to realize, well, 80% of our housing was built after 1990, and they're not the houses that were built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Again, nothing wrong with that, but sometimes that's the impression, and so there's we change perspectives, and so when you change the perspectives, then people get interested. And the second guess is going to be essentially where exactly am I going to locate my business, and so we match people up with professionals that do that. And then sometimes when you have a franchisor, they don't have a franchisee. This is an investor who actually puts the money up. We will sometimes match those folks up too, because we know who those people are that are investing in our area are. Sometimes we're offering brand new plots of land where they'll build something new, and other times we're looking to go ahead and redevelop and use areas that are already existing and trying to go ahead and infill those places. So there's a lot to that and a lot to unpack, but I got to say, we saw a lot of friendly faces. We saw a lot of optimism. There are still businesses actively seeking places. It seems that there's a couple of retailers that are struggling, so we have to be mindful of that. You can go online and kind of take a look at some of the, especially like restaurants and some of the concepts like Quiznos is gone, right? You got some of these folks that may be overexpanded. I'm hearing that there might be some trouble for Subway, or and so as we look at some of these retailers that were growing at once upon a time, some of them are starting to go ahead and subtract and leave the market for various reasons, and those are that's all outside of our control as a city. We do also have another challenge coming up at the end of the year. The water district connection fees are going up 70% for new developers. That's a very difficult thing to overcome for some folks. The city's looking for ways to mitigate that. We're looking at maybe discount packages for specific types of developments. And I would remind folks that on the list that you saw here, you'll notice that there were no cannabis car washes or gas station folks that we went ahead and visited in this last run. You'll probably be relieved to hear that. So with that, that's a quick update on what we were doing at the ICSC this year. And again, new hoteliers coming to town, and we also have I don't know if I can daylight it quite yet, but it sounds like we have a medical group that's looking to go ahead and move into the area. So that's exciting, and certainly sorely needed. All right, so let's go ahead and switch topics, and let's talk about a little bit about the city budget that's coming up. And Lake Elsinore has, quite frankly, nothing but good news to present. And if there was bad news, I'd be happy to present that. If there were some things that were concerning, I would certainly go ahead and say that and kind of, probably say it in a nice way, right? Says, but I have to say, we took a look at the budget in this last council meeting, and there really was no bad news. Revenues were up without raising taxes. We've lived well within our budget. We've programmed new dollars for a number of items, including our economic development team, which has gone into place this year. We've also programmed another new position for our retail anti-theft team, essentially, for Sheriff's Department. So we're going to hire a new guy, which is technically two positions, but we count it as one because, morning and afternoon. We also have good news about Launch Point. Launch Point is still producing a net profit. Right around, they project this year around 250,000. Last year was about 450,000. We always project low, and when it comes in high, we've got a good surprise, right? We want positive surprises. We've also programmed additional monies in for improvements, and so some of the biggest improvements you're starting to see already. And we're certainly starting to go ahead and take a look at ways to go ahead and build out some of the other infrastructure as well as facilities. So libraries, kind of broken ground. And we also have City Hall, which is being expanded, and folks can see that area that's been well fenced off. We're looking at other types of opportunities. We were going to consider some pickleball courts last night, but that got pulled back as we take a look and kind of reconsider. We're looking for some additional sports fields. We're also looking at additional ways to go ahead and improve the water quality of the lake with potential and expansion of the nano bubbler program, and more special events. We have been able to stay relatively flat in comparison to CPI on raises. So a few years back, citizens of Lake Elsinore approved the Measure Z funds. And that Measure Z money has provided a lot of flexibility to the city, and certainly has continued to go ahead and offer greater and greater opportunities. I wasn't necessarily in favor of adding the sales tax. That was me personally, and I spoke out against it, but it got approved. And so my secondary promise was that we were going to go ahead and make sure we spent the money responsibly. And one of the things I'm really proud about is that our representatives with the Measure Z subcommittee, as well as the city council and city staff, have largely continued to go ahead and use the bulk of that money, not on raises and not on expanding, city positions, which we've done some of that, especially in law enforcement. We also got a public fire station reopened with the medic squad, but for the most part, a lot of that money is going towards a lot of the one-time expenses, the special projects that you're seeing that are improving the city. So, for instance, the nano bubbler program, we would have never got that if it weren't for the Measure Z funds. So, we're trying to be good stewards with the money. All of the increases in costs are in line with CPI, which everybody knows everything's gotten a lot more expensive lately. And we've done that while also taking care of our staff and making sure that we stay focused on being good stewards of that money. Just a couple of highlights. Total revenue increased about 2.55%. We saw some expenditure increases, of course, in our economic development department. We spent more on our community center team. We are seeing some of our decreases and offsets to that with the departure of one of our assistant city managers. And we are also saving some money in public works with a shift in terms of the money in terms of outside contract services. We certainly did invest in public safety and in fire, and then also in animal services, which was the result of an increase in the minimum wage. So we're a balanced budget. We got a 20% contingency, so in case those storm clouds on the horizon actually become a rainy day, we have a rainy day fund. We're solvent. There's no concerns about debt load. There's no concerns about pensions. We have really done the job, and we'll continue to do so into the future. So very positive, very happy about that. Happy to answer any questions that folks might have about our budgeting process. With that, summer's here. something a little more exciting, right? We've got a lot of great things that are happening this summer. I mean, 4th of July is right around the corner, and one of the biggest things that we have going on is the arrival of a large rubber friend of ours. If you haven't heard, the largest rubber duck in the world is coming to Lake Elsinore for 4th of July weekend. On July 4th, you will be able to go ahead and see Mr. Duck, or Mrs. Duck. I don't know if it's a Mr. or Mrs. Duck, honestly. But the duck will be present at right near the levee, the entrance of the levee over at Storm Stadium. That'll be there on July 4th. It'll be there to go ahead and essentially enjoy the 4th of July holiday with us. There'll be a fireworks show, concert, and vendors and whatnot, and that will continue on throughout the rest of the weekend with a Jeep car show on July 5th. Again, concert and vendors, and then on July 6th, it'll round out, and then the duck will sail out of Lake Elsinore. So it's a great opportunity to get folks out and really go ahead and highlight Lake Elsinore. It's the first time, I believe, that the duck's been in America in 10 years. Is that right? 10 years. 10 years, the first time it'll be coming back to Lake Elsinore. It has its own following, so you'll see lots of newcomers come out to the city and enjoy things. I'm hoping that the lake water quality is really good. I'm hoping that we get some good photos out of it, and people are able to go ahead and kind of laugh and smile and remember that one time that there was something really unique that happened in the city. So proud to be part of that. Certainly looking forward to it, and I hope everybody has a planned staycation right here in the city of Lake Elsinore for 4th of July weekend. The fireworks show is going to be phenomenal as usual. You can head out to the Bobber and go ahead and grab some food and drink and take a walk along the shoreline. We are looking forward to a lot of boating. We have car cruises that are coming back to Lake Elsinore in the next month. We have Oktoberfest out in the horizon. It's happening at the end of September. For those of you who have Lederhosen and would like to go ahead and participate, we have a lot of kids events, and we just finished up the kids fishing tournament. The kids enjoyed themselves. We kind of stocked the channel so that it was like shooting fish in a barrel, figuratively, right? And we are certainly continue to go ahead and program more events and whatnot. I invite everyone to go out to www.lake-elsinore.org and get a full list of all the events, or follow on Facebook, Instagram. I think we're on YouTube, and just about every other social media account. Check us out and certainly go ahead and get involved. So we're having a good time. Summer, it's here. All right. With that, I have a friend here, Alex Kowalski. Him and Jason DeVore invited us out this past weekend, and on Friday I was actually in a dunk tank promoting the Family Fun Fest. And if you drove by the outlets on Friday, Saturday, Sunday this last weekend, you might have noticed that there was a big carnival set up in the northern parking lot of the outlet center. So on the first day for the opening, we certainly did go ahead and love to participate and get some people out there. I got dunked a bunch of times. It seemed like there was a lot of testing of the equipment when I got out there, which didn't seem very fair to me. And then the kids that would throw the softball to hit the target seemed awful close. But a good time was had by all. And then there were some additional folks who came out. Lori Stone from Marietta, the mayor from Marietta, came out. She followed me. That was great. And we had Heidi Dodd from our school district, and just a bunch of other folks. There were some impersonators, so you could dunk Barack Obama or Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders. We had guys in masks. It was a lot of fun. They did a great job. I heard one of the food vendors absolutely sold out of food on the first day. The response was a lot stronger than anybody could have possibly imagined. There was a lot of people, about 15,000 people that showed up. And so I probably can guess that next year we're going to see something very similar. And I hope people hear about it, and they certainly get out there to go ahead and enjoy themselves like they did this year. It seemed like a lot of people had a lot of good things to say. All right, I'm going to go to questions now. And so if you haven't asked your question, certainly go ahead and ask those questions online right now. I got a number of them right now from Facebook. And one of the first ones is, where are you guys planning on putting the Sportsplex? Super excited about that. So the sports complex is a private development that got stalled when there was some potentially native bones that were found on site that stopped construction. This was in the middle of COVID, probably the worst time possible for that to happen. And so it kind of froze everything. And, the city kind of facilitates a conversation between the developer, because it's private property, and the tribes, in this case, two tribes, as they have a discussion about that. And those talks have been progressing a little bit more so lately, but we don't have a finalization on when the project's going to move forward. There's been a lot of things that's changed since the project stopped. Differences in financing. Certainly, there has to be some changes in the way the investors pool probably dried up to a certain degree. So I don't know when that project's going to be completed. I know that there's been discussions about potentially moving the site on that, but nothing's real. Nothing's been confirmed. And if you ever feel like I'm being a little cagey about, maybe over disclosing something or being specific about something, you have to understand, in the real estate world, there's competition for these parcels. There's a limited number of parcels within the city, and there's a limited number of opportunities within the city. And so if you have a specific franchise or project that's looking to target a specific area, if I start talking about it, somebody may hear about it, come in, swoop in, and acquire this property and then lock it up. And then the project goes away, right? It never happens. And I don't want that to happen. So sometimes if it's not a done deal, I'm not talking about it. I'm not going to talk about it. And that's the reason why. So the most I can say right now is that there is the potential that it could move. There's also potential it could end up getting built on site. And that discussion is ongoing. We're continue to go ahead and talk to the owner, the main owner of the property, and who happens to be the same owner as the storm management team. That's Gary Jacobs. And we're working on it. We're trying to go ahead and get that project unstuck, but there are some realities that are surrounding it. Let's see here. Do they transfer animals out of the areas they plan to build on? Do they have rules about protecting wildlife in areas? Typically, when a project is big enough, what they do is a biological study. A biological study basically takes a look at an area for endangered flora and fauna. And that study usually takes about 9 months, and it's a very in-depth and very serious study and whatnot. If there are endangered animals on site, then mitigation is necessary. If there are not, no, pretty much no. And so animals can be displaced by development, certainly, and that still certainly happens in California. But no, they don't go searching for every animal that's in an area and then relocate those animals. I think they'll do that in some rare instances, but for the most part, it's the animals are displaced. That's the reality of development. So sorry about that. Let's see here. Too bad the Fun Fest didn't last longer. Come on. The Fun Fest again, huh? All right. Well, okay. Glad people enjoyed the Fun Fest. We'll certainly make sure to go ahead and support that in the future. Can we improve the maintenance of the landscaping around the city and add some sidewalks? Yes, we can. And as a matter of fact, the city, so one of the things I might end up talking about a couple of times here tonight is the upcoming capital improvement project list that is going to be presented to the council, I believe, at the next meeting or possibly the following meeting. We just got a draft report on that. There's going to be some commentary that happens in the background as we prioritize certain projects, but for the most part, we are starting to go ahead and put those projects in line. Part of that includes sidewalk construction. Some of it includes paving dirt roads. Some of it includes beautification around the city. I think there's a big effort to go ahead and kind of finalize some of the improvements that we're seeing along Main Street, especially as we're working on the City Hall and the library, which will certainly be welcome additions here along the lake. just to kind of highlight something that we're working on that hasn't quite been approved yet, but something that we're looking seriously is we're looking at finally putting together kind of a gateway arch, which signals the entrance into the downtown area. It's almost like, a portal. If you've ever been to Disneyland and you're going into a new land, you walk through a certain area and the music changes and the kind of like the world sort of changes. That's kind of the effect we're looking for, is somewhat of that portal into the downtown, into the historic downtown, where we're going to be focusing on certain types of architecture. We're going to be focusing on certain design characteristics, design standards, in order to make the downtown feel like a downtown. So you'll see that and much, much more coming from that in the not too distant future. How much of an impact did Mayor Yarborough have on the community of Lake Elsinore we see here today? So for anybody who doesn't know, Thomas Yarborough was our first black mayor, and the very first black mayor in the history of California. Now, there's some debate about this because he was elected to the council and then appointed to mayor. And then, there's another mayor that was directly elected that they always give credit to. I think he was out of Los Angeles, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But Yarborough technically won that race by about a year. And so very proud, Lake Elsinore, diversity came here first, and we have a park named after him. It's hard to say exactly what additional impact that he had on the community at the time. There's, a lot of times, especially during that time, maintaining a city was a lot more hands-off. City basically handled some the basic responsibilities and some land use, policing, and whatnot. And there wasn't a lot of, certainly not a lot of projects like we're having today, right? Like they never really at that time were building out campgrounds or city halls and whatnot. Matter of fact, City Hall moved from building to building quite a bit, from that time period till today. So it's hard to say, what was the additional impact. But I will say that it's always nice to go ahead and make a landmark, go ahead and moment in time to make history, to go ahead and signal to folks that times have changed. And that in itself is an accomplishment as far as I'm concerned. Let's see here. Mayor Tom Bradley. Yeah, thank you. Mayor Tom Bradley is somebody actually chimed in. Thank you for that. Let's see here. I hear Sierra Haynes writes, I hear that Lake Elsinore is losing its small town feel with all the building. Main Street is looking. Okay, you clicked on that. So, okay. Now you unclicked on it. Main Street is looking more modern, and all the building is. Okay, now I need you to click on it again because I can't read the rest of it. Please. So Main Street is looking more modern. All the building is attracting more crime. With Central Avenue being built up this quietly, how can us locals feel safe, not feel overcrowded, and pushed out? Our kids are not safe. Okay, so let's address that first. Okay, so in terms of the safety, public safety is our number one priority in the city. And that's something that we invest heavily in. As a matter of fact, most of our budget goes towards policing. Okay, so we show that in dollars. We show that not just in words, but we show that in dollars and commitment, right? If you look at the statistics for Lake Elsinore and the FBI crime statistics, which are aggregated from the reported calls for service from our sheriff's department, you will see that over the last 12 years, violent crime has dropped dramatically in the city. I mean, it has fallen off a cliff. We went to just above average in California to far below average in California. There hasn't been a murder in the city in like 4 years, and I have to leave out the shooting death of Darnell Calhoun, who was on service. Unfortunately, they don't count that in the statistic. I don't know why, but outside of that particular shooting death, we don't have a lot in terms of violent crime. We don't have a lot in terms of violent robberies or rape. aggravated assault. All of those statistics are very, very low within the city. So we have a safe community. And as a matter of fact, if I want to go ahead and kind of toot the horn of the sheriff's department, property crime has been kind of stuck. Property crime has been kind of it hasn't moderated much over the past 12 years. And this is something that we wanted to go ahead and put a focus on, especially with Prop 47 having gone in place in 2014. And it seems like it's been stubbornly stuck, mostly because of theft and some other smaller quality of life crimes. And there's an initiative right now that was just approved for the ballot in this November, and I hope everybody votes yes on it, because it'll change Prop 47 and allow us to go ahead and kind of put these guys in jail or force them through the drug courts. And there's a couple of things that are happening. We'll talk about that in another episode, right? But the city has focused very, very much so on reducing crime. And part of that has been an investment in flock cameras. And one of the things that happened this last year is that we saw a dramatic decrease in car thefts in the city, which is going to lower our property crime rates, which, if you compare us to other cities right now, or as of last year or the year before, you could compare us very closely to the crime rates that you have in the city of Brea. But nobody thinks that. Nobody even pays attention to that. They have no idea. There's just this perception, right? And the perception is not accurate. Very accurate to the city of Brea. Well, unless Brea's car thefts dropped all of a sudden, and maybe because they adopted the flock camera program like we did, or maybe they saw some other major drop in their property crimes, we're going to have a better crime rate than that city. And I have a feeling that we're going to start seeing the city mentioned as one of those safest cities in California here in the not too distant future. We don't have the final FBI crime statistics. Those don't come out until 2 years afterwards, so it's always backwards looking. But the crimes are getting better. The city is safe. We have a very, very safe community, and folks should recognize that. With that said, the city is continuing to develop, and that's going to continue to happen. We are essentially the second to last place along the 15 freeway to have not developed. And we have half of our residents that are clamoring for certain franchises and businesses that exist in other cities. We have the other half of the residents, I feel like, that are clamoring for us to go ahead and slow things down and keep it the way that it is, or the way that it was. And I can only say that we can only prevent that so much. And certainly we want to go ahead and be pro-business so we can get those businesses that everybody loves and wants. But at the same time, part of the kind of the dirty secret to the other side of that is you have to have the houses, you have to have the bodies, you have to have the density, you have to have the people. And the way to bring those people in is through residential development. So we're going to see more people, and that means more traffic. And retailers have to have traffic in order to survive. You don't have traffic, you don't have business, and you can't have one without the other. Now, places like Temecula and Marietta, nearby cities, have managed to do this while remaining safe cities. Being completely developed out, much like Temecula is right now, does not mean that you're going to suddenly become, a place that's not nice to live or dangerous for kids. And so we have a lot of people that are working for the city now that we didn't have working for the city maybe a decade ago, that come from places like that know how to develop cities in a way so that way they progress in a healthy way, so that you're more Irvine than, say, Santa Ana, right? Nothing against Santa Ana, but they have challenges, right? And I think we all know that. And we can certainly go ahead and model our city after some of the best examples in the world. And that's one of the upsides to us developing a little later than places like Temecula and Marietta. We're going to get the best of the best. We're going to get the best of the best. Everybody likes to compare us to those cities, but the bottom line is that, the city's also 140 years old, almost 140 years old. So it would be more apt to compare us to a city that age, like Riverside or Santa Ana. Those are two cities that incorporated roughly about 140 years ago. And so the fact that we have all this open land that we can go ahead and work with, and we're not overdeveloped out, we can use that as a way of going ahead and make sure we have positive, very clean development and safe development. So that's all I can say about that. Are you going to please let the ambassador be opened for those transitioning from homeless to working members of the community. So we had a meeting a few council meetings back about the proposal for the Ambassador Hotel. And one of the things that the city council found was that the proposed use of the building was, although it was similar to what the use was back in the 80s, the early 80s, was that the site had sat for so long that adding those uses back to the building would potentially go ahead and cause some off-site mitigation impacts that we can't anticipate. And instead of arguing and saying yes or no on it, what we did is we sent it back for further studies. So the council didn't approve the project, but we didn't decline the project. What we said is we have a lot more questions, and we want to make sure that whatever goes there doesn't hurt the people that are already in the area existing. And so that puts the ball back into the applicant's court to go ahead and generate additional studies, make sure they have adequate parking, or make sure that they have their lighting standards are up to date, and that they're able to go ahead and handle traffic, and if they have to do some widening or do some intersection improvements and whatnot. That'll all be revealed through those efforts. And so we're going to go through that process and, treat them like anybody else. There's some people that are very in favor. There's some people that are very opposed. And for us, it's an application. It's an application. It's an application. One of the things I can't do is I can't really go ahead and take a position on a project that is going to come in front of the council in the future. Unlike your state and federal elected officials who can campaign on those types of things, I have to adhere to the Brown Act, which means that I cannot bias myself on a project. I have to act almost like a judge. So for me, it's more information. We're going to go ahead and see what comes, and we will make a determination based on that information. I hope that answers your question. This question comes in. What are you most proud of your mayorship these first 6 months? I would say these podcasts are a big improvement. I'm finding a lot of people enjoy watching and asking questions and learning about the city. Sunlight is the best disinfectant for things like corruption or the things that happen behind the scenes. And when people get to see and talk about openly some of the issues of the day, I think it makes life a little bit easier for us because people see that we're doing things with an open hand. I take pride in these particular podcasts and live stream introducing people to some of the most important people in our community, and doing my best to go ahead and hear people as they ask for things and also respond to them as to how things work. So thank you for that question. Any upcoming plans for the building of new affordable housing units? Yeah, there are actually a couple of affordable housing specialist developers who are acquiring land right now. I bring up COVID a lot because it really did affect our world so much, and it really does kill projects or delay things. It changed the whole game in terms of financing. We certainly have had a run-up in costs in terms of building costs, in terms of labor costs since then, and so it's kind of warped everything. And affordable housing's not immune to that. So, but those folks are starting to get back online. I know that there's been some land acquisitions or some property that's been tied up. CNC Housing is one of our big investors in the area in affordable housing, and I suspect that we'll see some more of that, mostly in the Main Street area, the historic Main Street area for now. I'm also watching another development that was supposed to have already started. It froze up. There was a challenge with the executive director, our former treasurer, passing away. And so we're watching some of those things as they develop out, and hopefully we'll get some more affordable housing. I think it's a net positive, especially considering the status of housing and the cost of housing in Southern California as a whole. Jeff writes, hello, Mr. Manos. I just joined. I hope I'm not repeating a question. Can you please talk about what is being built across from Walmart on Collier and Central? Yes, you're going to see a retail development that's anchored by a Stater Brothers. I believe they're also going to see a coffee shop. Dutch Bros. I believe that there's also going to be another drive-through restaurant. The name eludes me right now. A 7-Eleven, gas station and convenience store, and one of the dreaded car washes is going to be going on that corner there. That particular project was supposed to include a Sprouts. That was what was told to us prior to approval, and then after approval, it switched out to a Stater Brothers. This was very upsetting to myself, and I know at least 2 other council persons who probably wouldn't have approved the project as it sits right now. But it's a reminder to everyone that the city doesn't approve franchises or tenant mix. We approve buildings. So, our job is to go ahead and make sure that the buildings are safe, that the what's being proposed and the impacts are mitigated, and the uses can change. You know what I mean? The uses stay the same, but the franchises can change. Excuse me. Yeah, that's what's happening there, and it was more exciting before, but I live in the area, and I can tell you that I certainly would love another shopping option in terms of grocery shopping, so I'm looking forward to the Stater Brothers going in there. It'll provide a little more competition. Hopefully those groceries get a little cheaper. Let's see here. David, what happened to the project across from Jack's Barbecue? Been fenced up for a while. That's one of those affordable housing projects that I just mentioned. The executive director for the housing authority that was building that project passed away, and that's part of what's happened there. And that was Alan Baldwin, who was greatly appreciated and served the city for about 11 years as a treasurer, and then before that he was a council member for a short time period as well, and he will be missed. Yes, we need a Sprouts. I know. No Trader Joe's. They're looking. They haven't found a place yet, but they're looking. So we got to connect them with a developer who can put together a nice big project. Any updates on the In-N-Out and Kaiser? So In-N-Out, I can tell you, has submitted for building permits. They're going through engineering to go ahead and get their permits to actually start grading and whatnot. And so, they're going through the plan check process. I don't have a timeline on when they're actually going to build. They can pull their building permits and start right away, or they may wait a few months. It's hard to say. They don't exactly call me regularly to go ahead and give me updates, unfortunately. But I'll give you an update when I do get word that that's going to happen. In terms of the Kaiser, very quiet. And honestly, if I did know anything about Kaiser right now, I probably wouldn't say much about it. I know that they own the lot over there off of Dexter. There's no activity there, but if they were interested or looking or considering something else, I couldn't tell you about it right now anyways, even if I did know something. I don't know anything, but if I did, I wouldn't tell you. All right. Any news on what will replace Rite Aid? No. As a matter of fact, that was one of the locations we were pushing pretty hard at ICSC. There's a couple of ideas that might work there, and certainly we're connecting the representatives for the building with the representatives for some franchises that might go there. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Miguel. All right. What else do we have? Are we at possible Harbor Freight? We would take Harbor Freight. We'd certainly take Harbor Freight. What happened to the plans for the McDonald's across the street from Launch Point? That project is on hiatus right now. From what I've heard, they are approved. They're still approved. But I'm hearing that there's been kind of a change in the tenant mix, and potentially they may end up not going in there, which means one of those car washes that everybody was complaining about might go away too. So we're looking at potential reuse opportunities. Down the street, here's an interesting point, something nobody's heard about yet. Down the street, you have that 2-story complex that was either tied up or I think acquired, and I think there's a new closing there that was acquired by somebody who's looking to go ahead and completely renovate that center. So you might see something about that coming soon to application, but we know that that's changed hands. Topgolf. Can a guy get a Topgolf? Man, I would love a Topgolf. Topgolf, I heard, was going somewhere along the 15 freeway. I can't really say more than that. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Could be a competitor, or could be Topgolf, or could be something. I don't know. I don't know. It's possible. We would love Topgolf to come here. We would love Topgolf to come here. One thing I will say is that Topgolf likes to locate near airports. That's one of the big things that they love. And although there is a competitor, it seems like that competitor is having a hard time getting traction even in places like Las Vegas. But we're exploring that idea. We're also exploring maybe some other ideas that might be like Topgolf adjacent. You know what I mean? Some other ideas where you might marry an idea like Topgolf to restaurants and kind of a great place to go ahead and have a bachelor party or something. I don't know, right? So we're looking at that right now too. And we're trying to go ahead and spark the imagination of those who have the type of money needed to invest. So let's see here. We've got Toblerone 2001 from IG. When are we going to have healthy stores like Trader Joe's, Sprouts, and LE? Both of those franchises are currently looking in the area. I can tell you that much. I can't tell you where they're looking at. But I do know that the city has recently reached a threshold where both of those options are right now, I think, racing to beat the other to try to go ahead and open up here in Lake Elsinore. But the challenge is location. They're very, very particular about location. All right, there we go. Well, that's the wonderful thing about being on a live stream is sometimes things happen. So, unfortunately, I think we were cut out. Do you know where I cut out?
Just you answered the last question.
Just as you were, yeah.
All right. Well, that's perfect timing. Okay, good deal. Any updates on when the construction will begin next to the stadium and behind Stater Brothers? That project was pitched originally as what we used to call Artisan Alley. It was then there was an interested developer who wanted to put apartments there, and city basically said no. We're not even interested in apartments there. Those folks, initially sent some letters from their attorneys, basically posturing like they were going to sue. City said, "We'll fight you over it. We don't care," and so then they went away. So that happened. So there's nothing going there right now. As a matter of fact, I've got an upcoming meeting with the current owners on the project so that we can discuss ideas about what we would like to see on site. And that meeting will probably come with some arm twisting as to what they'd like to go ahead and see on site too. And obviously it's going to be an interesting discussion, but nothing yet. I saw another question that asked the question EOS. When is EOS opening in the old Walmart Center? EOS is planning a 2025 opening. They have not indicated whether they're doing that early, mid, or late 2025. I know they've acquired a bunch of different locations in the region, and they intend to go ahead and open all of those locations at the same time to make a big splash. So nothing wrong with the development on our side. So far as I know, they're progressing quite well, but they intend to open in 2025. In your opinion, what is better for Lake Elsinore, track home communities or estate homes? Both of them have positives. As far as track homes go, you get uniformity and usually master planning, and that means master planned infrastructure. That means sidewalks, lights, sewer. A cumulative sewer or drainage program. We certainly have some opportunities to go ahead and extract other amenities like parks and fire stations and things of the net. And sometimes when you start talking about tract homes, also you get a better chance to go ahead and improve the infrastructure of a certain area. So like some tract homes will trigger basically the improvement of a road like Lake Street, a widening or whatnot. But with estate homes, you get usually higher income individuals that move into the area, there's a need for both, right? Like both of them belong in a community. But typically in the life cycle of a city, what I notice is that you start off. A city usually starts off incorporating after there's been a couple of people that moved there, and it starts off with a lot of large tract of undeveloped land. So like probably used to be a ranch or farmland, and either the ranch or the farmland goes out of business for whatever reason, right? And then so that rancher or farmer decides, I'm going to go ahead and subdivide the land so I can go ahead and kind of get out of Dodge, right? And so those folks will start subdividing those properties to go ahead and sell off to different people. And those people typically build either smaller ranches or farms, or they build estates, right? So you get your estate homes that come out of that. And then later on down the line, once those estate homes are built, you start seeing some folks go ahead and do the master plan development. And that's kind of like the natural life cycle. Once you get the tract homes come in, then you get the commercial that infills. And then once you get the commercial that infills, you get the industrial. And once you get the industrial, then the space starts getting real tight and you start seeing folks go ahead and do high density housing. We're in that stage of our life cycle. I mean, everything that's coming forward right now happens to be high density housing, it seems like. And for good reason, right? It's going to be kind of harder to go ahead and see a future where some of these areas develop into estate lots. You might never see it happen. And so the city is right now in the midst of development for mostly tract homes, medium density tract homes, and especially with the way the state's working, probably higher density stuff. And that's what's in demand right now. Not a lot of people can afford the master plan, the estate types of homes. So you're going to see a demand for that, mostly the smaller stuff. What's happening with the downtown renovations and the new library? New library broke ground. People see the fencing up. There's some final details being put on the design plans for that, and then it's got to be run through engineering. So we're going to go ahead and go through that process. I've seen some conceptuals, but they have not been finalized yet. And as far as downtown goes, you're going to see a repaving and a new sidewalk effort and a beautification effort with new landscaping and whatnot stretch all the way from the new freeway on-ramp entrance that that we're finishing up right now, all the way down to the very end of Main Street, where and some, I think I mentioned it earlier, some archways and signifiers that you're entering into the downtown area. And I gotta say, based on the renderings, it's just gonna look great. It's gonna look absolutely amazing and a dream come true. I gotta tell you, I started running for office in 2008, and they were talking about some of the things that we're actually building right now. And most people said, you'll never get that. It'll never happen. It's happening. So I just have to say, I have to commend our city staff. They don't get enough credit. The council's been great. We've been cohesive, very business-minded, right? But the staff have been doing a phenomenal job this year in making things happen. I mean, podcasts aside, right? And better transparency, that's great. These guys have been bringing all of the events that went away after COVID started and bringing all of that back online. And that's a process. It's a lot of extra work, manpower. We have to hire police sometimes to go ahead and block off roads. Just about everything that existed prior to COVID has been coming back, with one exception, and that's the Lake Elsinore Grand Prix. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to find a promoter that can go ahead and get that thing off the ground in a way that's, I think, does. I think there's nobody that can do it in a way that does justice to the old Grand Prix. That's my challenge. The last one that was run entirely on the motorsports track, and that's just not gonna draw the type of people that we want to see there. So we'll keep working on that. Okay. Let's see here. We don't have nothing in Lakeland Village. No supermarkets. I'm very sorry for that. Lakeland Village is pretty much outside of the city of Lake Elsinore. I turned back into a pumpkin when we cross over the city border. I have no power over there. I'm so sorry, but Lakeland Village certainly is a community in need. You guys need better policing, sidewalks, street lights, an economic development plan, code enforcement, infrastructure upgrades. There's so much that could happen over there in Lakeland Village. We talked about annexation once upon a time. The city was in a position where we were willing to go ahead and fund the study for that. Bringing on Lakeland Village would be a net loss for the city, in terms of our balance sheet, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done over there. But I will say Lakeland Village certainly needs it, and as a matter of good governance, it would be the right thing to do to bring Lakeland Village into the city. But that process involves an application and then eventually a vote by the people themselves, and a majority of you have to vote to come into the city. And there's no guarantee that would happen, and there's a lot of money that has to be invested in order to get that on the ballot. So for the here and now, I don't see it happening. But if any residents in Lakeland Village ever wanted to make that happen, you could do that through a petition. A petition drive would certainly go ahead and pique interest and show that there's resident interest in making something like that happen. And it certainly would benefit you guys, and I think it would benefit the city of Lake Elsinore as well. Are we going to get any restaurants here in Lake Elsinore? Outback, Lucille's, Famous Dave's, Yard House, P.F. Chang's, anything? Well, we've gotten a lot of restaurants over the past 10 years, but yes, there are a number of restaurants that are interested in the area. They're currently searching and locating. We talked to a number of them at ICSC. Some of the brands that you've discussed are probably not going to come to Lake Elsinore. They're very selective about where they go. They usually, major centers and whatnot. If you don't see it in Marietta, you're probably going to have a hard time finding it coming to Lake Elsinore, because the demographics are better, quite frankly, in Marietta. Density is better in Marietta. So you're probably a little ways off before you see something like a P.F. Chang's or something like that. But I will say that there is a French restaurant that I don't know the name of it, but there's a very nice French restaurant that's coming to the downtown area to replace the spot where Felix's is at. And I certainly hope that the residents come out to support, because from what I heard, they are 4.7 stars, very good, and I'll be excited to go ahead and see them come to town. Got one more question. Please update us on the lake's health conditions, and its health. So currently the lake is under a caution advisory as the summer has progressed. The microcystin levels have elevated. The city has been deploying the algicide, the peroxide-based algicide system, as pretty much on a biweekly basis, maybe a little bit less. And what we're doing is we're attempting to go ahead and basically keep that algae under control. The nanobubbler continues to run 24/7. I think I mentioned a little earlier that we're looking at allocating funding for additional systems. The systems seem to be doing the job. Matter of fact, it's kind of changing the science around water purification in lakes as it's happening. One of the premier scientists in the area, Dr. Anderson, I'm told, is very interested, and he's writing things. We have a system called the LEAM system. It's a mixer and bubbler system. There's some concerns that system's actually causing more problems than good. So we're kind of working through that right now. We're analyzing and taking a look at that. Unfortunately, that LEAM system is necessary in order to allow our water districts to go ahead and discharge water. So it's going to continue to run until it's proven that it's not helpful otherwise. So there's a little bit of political implication and jockeying that's happening as far as that goes. But I will say this, the lake's in better condition today than it was in February of last year. Far better condition, and we're getting a lot of attention for it. I would say that it's still a great place to go ahead and do your boating and your swimming. Just pay attention to what's happening there. as far as algae blooms go. And if you happen to see algae, and I'm not talking about the stuff that's in the water column, I'm talking about the stuff that's floating on top, be very, very wary of that stuff. Not a lot of that happening right now as far as the lake goes. It's still pretty clear. It's still got a lot more clarity than it did a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. It's still looking very, very good. So thank you for that question. Okay. Why impact for CR trash events at the outlets this Saturday, 6:15. Oh yeah, that's a great one. As a matter of fact, on the 15th, which is Saturday, the CR&R will be hosting a bulky items trash event. So you can go to the outlet center, moving it away from the storm because there's a game on Saturday. It's going to be at the outlet center. If you have any bulky items or stuff around the house that you want to go ahead and get rid of, Saturday's the day. Go ahead and hit that, and make sure you should have gotten a little notice mailed to you. There's a certificate. Otherwise, just show them your ID, and they'll go ahead and let you through. It's for Lake Elsinore residents only. All right. Well, with that, that's the last of our questions. I want to thank everybody for joining us. It certainly has been a good time. Some great questions, as always. And we'll be getting together with you guys next month, right around mid-month. We'll make that announcement online. For those of you whose questions I didn't answer, we'll go ahead and keep those, and maybe we'll take a chance. Maybe I'll take an idea, take one of those questions and make it a whole subject for the next one. So thank you for joining us. My name is Steve Manos, and we'll see you next time.